day I went missing was the day I died. 5 years in hell forged me into a weapon, which I used to honor a vow I made to my father, who sacrificed his life for mine. In his final moments, he told me the truth, that our family's wealth had been built on the suffering of others, that he failed our city, and that it was up to me to save it and right his wrongs. But to do that without endangering the people closest to me, I have to be someone else. I have to be something else.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I would like to speak about the CW11's hit TV series Arrow. However, I am going to be focusing solely on season 1, as the other seasons are utter nonsense. Without further ado, let's get into it. The show revolves around Oliver Queen, a billionaire playboy who only ever cares about himself and partying. He's incredibly individualistic and relishes in partying, going to clubs, doing recreational drugs, drinking heavily, sleeping with beautiful women, and just getting himself into trouble with the law. He does not have any passion or purpose to his life. Then, on a boat trip with his father, the ship's engine fails in the middle of a storm and it goes down in the middle of the ocean. Oliver's father then sacrifices himself so that Oliver could live off what little rations remained in the lifeboat. But before he does this, he tells Oliver that he must survive, and that he must right his father's wrongs and save Starling City, his hometown. Oliver then ends up shipwrecked on an island with the sole objective of survival, and this has a great effect on Oliver's character. The first thing he does on the island is bury his father, which in itself carries a lot of weight, and serves to begin the development of his character. Then he is immediately attacked, and learns that this island was a prison for very dangerous criminals. Oliver must now rise in the face of adversity, and become something more than who he was, or else he wouldn't survive the island. After 5 years on the island, he returns to Starling City, and he assumes the role of a vigilante. The show has a great contrast between the changed Oliver masquerading as the vigilante, cleaning up Starling City, the Oliver who returned from the island, trying to acclimatize to regular life, and also the individualistic Oliver who is trying to survive on Lianu. These three stories run in tandem and make for an interesting storytelling perspective, as we get both past and present accounts of Oliver Queen. And props has to be given to Stephen Amell, who played these roles really well. And Stephen Amell is also strong and muscular, giving the show a very masculine tone to it. The men in the series are all very strong, whether it be Oliver or Diggle, Roy or Slade. The non-muscular men are those that aren't suited to fighting, like Robert, Tommy or Walter. And there's also the flip side with several beautiful women in the show as well. But by and large the focus is on the male characters in the series, and is why in later seasons it becomes extremely ridiculous when characters like Laurel or Thea begin fighting alongside Oliver and doing the same thing he does. Oliver is also this sort of mix between Batman and James Bond. He is seen driving his motorcycle around the city, he's usually surrounded by beautiful women, and he is of course extremely wealthy and famous. But under this guise he has a purpose now, and something that he is passionate about after returning from the island. Oliver's father wished to see Starling City in its prime once more. The city has fallen to criminal elements coming from the Glades, the slums of Starling City, and also through lots of organized crime and corruption. His father created a list of these men that were poisoning the city from the top down, and Arrow makes it his personal mission to hunt these men down. And throughout the 23 episode season, he does just that. He begins crossing names off his list as he confronts each of the men in his father's book. What's important to note is that he targets those that are corrupt or cancerous to the growth of the city. As he states in one of the episodes,
"Why are you doing this? I'm exactly like you. I only steal from the rich."
I'm not Robin Hood.
he doesn't steal from the rich to give to the poor. Instead, he finds those who have failed the city and either puts an arrow in them or gives them a second chance to turn their lives around. However, if a person does not take this chance, then they are met with an arrow to the chest as well. His adversary, however, is the Black Archer, who it is revealed is Malcolm Merlin. Malcolm's motivation comes from his wife, who died in the Glades from a random act of violence, which left her bleeding out in the street.
It still feels like yesterday that day. When she called my cell phone for the first time, I remember being annoyed. She knew I was busy, so I just let it ring. When she called back a minute later, I shut my phone off. A little after midnight, 2 SCPD officers showed up at my office. All I remember them saying was she'd been shot. Murdered in the Glades. After the cops left, I sat in my office the rest of the night listening to Rebecca's messages. She kept calling my name, asking for help, till she was just struggling to breathe, gasping for air. I listened to my wife die over and over and over again.
I can't imagine, Malcolm.
Try. Imagine it was Moira lying on that pavement, bleeding, calling your name, and then tell me you wouldn't be prepared to do what I am.
And he recognizes that there was no fixing the Glades. The Glades were a cancer spreading throughout the city, and the best way he could see of dealing with it was to get rid of it entirely, together with all the people living there. Again, as with my Harry Potter analysis of Voldemort, Malcolm Merlyn has to be attributed to some form of violence to resonate with the viewer that he is in fact evil. However, his plan might actually work. Destroying the Glades will result in a massive eugenic effect for Starling City, and if Arrow removed the corrupt 1%ers and organized crime bosses, then the city would see a short-term salvation from crime and corruption. From there, Malcolm would need to begin planning for the long term. Where Oliver would like to prune the leaves and carefully trim from the tree that which is hurting it, Malcolm would rather just snap off the entire branch and be done with it. In Daredevil's Season 2, the Punisher makes a good argument for his vendetta against the men that killed his family.
You run around this city like it's your damn shooting gallery.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you do? You act like it's a playground. You beat up the bullies with your fists, you throw them in jail, everybody calls you a hero, right? And then a month, a week, a day later, they're back on the streets doing the same goddamn thing.
So you just put him in the morgue.
You goddamn right I do. I think that this world, it needs men that are willing to make the hard call. That's what I think. I think you and me are the same. We're the same.
You know it.
Only I do the one thing that you can't. You hit them and they get back up. I hit them and they stay down. It's permanent. I make sure that they don't make it out on the street again. I take pride in that.
Let me ask you this.
What's that?
What about hope?
Oh, fuck.
Come on, Frank.
About Santa Claus? You want to talk about Santa Claus?
I live in the real world, too, and I've seen it.
What have you seen?
Redemption, Frank. It's real. And it's possible. The people you murdered deserve another chance.
What, to kill again, rape again? Is that what
No,
you
Frank,
want?
to try again, Frank. To try.
Daredevil's only counter-argument is that killing is wrong, which is rather weak writing. Similarly, in Arrow, from the second season onward, Arrow suddenly realizes much the same thing, that killing is wrong suddenly, and where on Lian he had to kill in order to survive, and it was depicted as such, and had significant weight on Oliver's shoulders, in the second season they depict it as something wholly wrong and twisted, even though the other characters also murdered Fires' men on the island to survive. This had to have been pushed by CW11, who were going to incorporate the much more family-friendly series The Flash into Arrow, and so they had to tone down the violence of the show, so that it loses its maturity and becomes rather pathetic. From the second season onward, a number of side characters now get shifted into the spotlight, and all of them begin to fight alongside Arrow, to such a point that everyone in the series is now capable of fighting the bad guys, diminishing the importance of the main character.
And when I'm old and I've had my fun, I'll sell my inventions so that everyone can be superheroes. Everyone can be super. And when everyone's super, no one will be.
The side characters are fine in the first season. The main focus is still on Oliver Queen, but there are secondary characters like Tommy, who is intertwined in the story because of his relationship with Laurel, and also his father was the Black Archer and the mastermind behind everything. Laurel is Oliver's ex-girlfriend, who he cheated on with her younger sister, who died in the boat that Oliver and his father was on. In later seasons, she would return, but it's a poor writing choice as her death held extreme significance with all the characters. Namely, Oliver recognizes that his recklessness has dire consequences. Lance recognizes that he should pay more attention to his daughter's life and be a better father. Laurel's mother recognizes her own faults, and Laurel herself comes to understand to cherish her family more. With the return of Sarah Lance, it undermines all of this, just so that they can include another comic book character. Diggle is a good sidekick to Oliver, as he is an ex-soldier and understands what it means to be at war. In Oliver's war against these men were going to have casualties. He was a good confidant to Oliver, and they write him very well. The only time he ever mentions race in the season was to make a joke.
All right. The person of color has successfully purchased her drugs.
For the record, I offered.
So it isn't obnoxious or pushing any sort of agenda in any way. His family is good, but I wish they incorporated more scenes later on of him trying to connect with Thea and his mother. They had a few nice ones early on, but then they dropped it, coming down to the end of the first season. And finally, there is Felicity. She was good in a supporting role where she helped Oliver on occasion. But when she joined the team, there was just a bit much of her. She wasn't annoying per se, but she was much better in her previous capacity. Furthermore, in later seasons, they make her the love interest of Oliver rather than Laurel, who I think would have been a better fit. Laurel was the one person keeping Oliver going on the island, and he would look at her picture for comfort. And he did this for 5 years. When he returned, he really did love her deeply. There would need to be some tweaks to her character to make her a better fit, but she was a better choice than Felicity at the very least. Not to mention, Felicity is also Jewish, but I digress. Diggle and Felicity aside, there is some propaganda pushed in the show where Moira remarries Walter after the death of Robert. Now, it is subversive as they intentionally made Walter, who has a British accent I might add, be portrayed as a black man. Walter is also very intelligent, a savvy businessman, and a good person overall. In the end, he also divorces Moira, but the way in which it was done was still subversive as the white partner was the one keeping secrets and essentially betrayed the other. She was also arrested for her involvement in Malcolm Merlyn's plans. The black partner was shown to be loyal, faithful, and truthful at all times, but it is rather subtle and can be overlooked, especially considering Walter was missing for most of the season as he was kidnapped by Malcolm Merlyn in order to ensure Moira's cooperation in his plans. So he isn't a major part of the show. The show is good, better than your average TV show today, but that isn't saying much. It isn't excellent. Characters like Tommy and Laurel become somewhat lackluster as the season progresses, and you soon grow rather bored of them. But the main storylines involving Oliver, both on the island and in Starling City, is rather interesting and excellent, making this a solid 6.5 out of 10 series. It is something rather masculine, something that is missing in many, if not all, new shows and films, and the writing is simple yet effective. My only problems with the series is the lack of family moments with Oliver in the second half of the season, too much Felicity and Tommy, and Laurel could have been written far better. It would also have been nice to see Roy join the police force, rather than making him try to seek Arrow and become a vigilante as well. This could still be his underlying motivation, but by joining the police force, he would be making a difference in the city, and it might get him closer to the vigilante investigation with Lance, neatly tying all the characters together in the story, as he and Thea are somewhat apart from it. I'd also advise not to watch past Season 1. From the very first episode of Season 2, the show begins to dip significantly in quality. Instead, pretend there's one episode after the Season 1 finale that showed what the effect of destroying the Glades was, and that the Green Arrow continued to assist the city until there came a time when he didn't need to do so. I'd personally have kept Tommy alive here, and have him take over his father's company, and Oliver can take over Queen Consolidated, and together they could rebuild the city. Now, Arrow isn't the only CW11 show in the DC universe. In fact, there are several others, each getting worse than the last. The Flash, DC Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, and Batgirl are all shows that stemmed from Arrow. But like I said, each of these gets progressively worse and worse. Batgirl, their latest show, had been cancelled after just 2 seasons. And shows like The Flash and DC Legends of Tomorrow are so bad that showing would be much more effective than trying to explain.
Barack Obama, it will almost be an honor to kill you. You will not escape. Grodd will complete his mission. Time to make America Grodd again.
Clearly you have some grievances. But perhaps we can look for a common ground. Or not.
Suffice to say that these shows are really bad and extremely subversive. The point here is that Arrow Season 1 is the exception rather than the rule, and it is a fun series to watch if you're looking for something to pass the time. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider leaving a like and letting me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I'll see you all in the next one.